Schluss of our learning. See ya. And Shleima. We're going to start at the Mishnah on Samach Zayin. I'm a base. Samach Zayin, I'm a base. Yeah. We just finished the Sar Lazazel. He takes the goat out. We said how many mil it is and what happens to the red string that was on there. And now we start. The Mishnah says the Kohen Gadol comes to the bull and the goat that the blood was sprinkled inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the oil and the Heichal on the Preiches and on the Mizbeach. But what about the actual flesh of the korban? Where is that? So that's in the Azara. So he comes over there. I mean, the Shechita was done on the Tzafin of the Azara in between Bein Olam and Mizbeach. So he comes over, Karan v'Haitzius HaMireim. He tears it open and he takes out the innards. Nasnan b'megas, he puts it in a bowl. V'Ktira and al-Gabi Mizbeach, and he offers them on the altar. Now the Gemara is going to challenge this, that he doesn't actually offer it on the altar, and it's going to adjust the reading of the Mishnah. Not that he doesn't actually offer it right now on the altar. Kalan b'makles, he braids it into a braid. We're talking about the carcass of the goat and of the bull. He sort of like intertwines them together, like twists them around each other, because they're going to be put on two poles that the people carry on their shoulders, and they're going to carry it outside the camp. It's called Parim Hanesrafim. There's Parim Hanesrafim and Seirim Hanesrafim. These are special sacrifices that the blood of the sacrifice is sprinkled inside the Heichal instead of on the outer altar. And the flesh is not put on the outer altar like the other sacrifices. It's taken outside the camps, outside the Yerushalayim, to be burnt. This is like the extreme. Usually a regular sacrifice is a sheep, right? Right? And it's done all on the outer altar. The blood is on the outer altar and like a regular sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And the flesh is burnt on the outer altar. Here the blood goes inside the temple, and then it's burnt outside Yerushalayim. The pasuk says, the one that burns it, the sacrifices, his clothing become tameh. When do his clothing become tameh? Sounds like when he burns them, right? But it says, once he exits the Azara, his clothing becomes tameh. Reb Shimon says no. When the fire catches on to most of this carcass, most of the animal, that's when he becomes tameh. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara challenges what we said. We said that he comes to the bull and to the goat that are going to be burnt. He takes out the innards, he puts them into a bowl, and he offers them on the Mizbeach. It says, V'ektiran sal kadaita. And he offers them, and it's really to smoke. And he burns them. Does that enter your mind that that's what he's doing? The problem here, as explained by Rashi rejects another text of this Gemara. The problem is that there are several things that need to happen before he burns the innards. One of them is he has to read from the Torah. He's going to do. We're going to see that in the next Mishnah. He also has to change his clothing, put on the golden clothing, and offer up the ram, his ram, and then the ram of the people. Then he has to change his clothing again, put on the white clothing, and go back inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim to get the fire pan out that was already used for the Ketairos. He left the spoon and a fire pan there on the rock or on the floor. Then he has to change his clothing again and take care of the Musaf. So there's a bunch of things he needs to do. So the Gemara answers this, when the time comes. He puts them into a bowl to offer them on the altar when the time comes. Not that he puts them in the bowl and offers them, but it's to offer them at the appropriate time. He puts them into a braid. It was like a braid. It wasn't really you don't braid the animal two carcasses of the animal. It was twisted together. Okay. The Gemara is now going to go through a discussion of how is the animal prepared to be burnt. When it comes to a carbon oila, a regular oila, a burnt offering, we say every morning in the Ketairos, the animal was skinned. The hifshidaisa was skinned. The skin belonged to the koyanim. They could get to use that leather if they wanted to tan it. And then then they cut it up into pieces. This carbon and all of the carbonas that are brought outside the camp, the skin is not removed. It's just burned. But however, it is cut up. Now we have to figure out what the source is for that. It's not clear what the source is. So it goes like this: Tana, the Brisa says that it was not cut up the way the flesh of an oila is cut up, where the skin is removed first, the hide is removed, and then they cut it up. No, here it was cut together with the hide, together with the skin was on it. Where do we know this from? The Tani was taught in the Brisa, Rabbi Yomer. Rabbi says, Nemar Khan, when it comes to Yom Kippur, the par basar of Yom Kippur, which are burnt outside. Which karbanos are burnt outside? So we have the goat, which was the oila, not the sar goat, not the sar mishnaleah, but the sar that went la Hashem, and the par, that was the sacrifice for the kohen gadol, his family, and the other kohenim. That was burnt outside. And then we have the other sacrifices are par kohen Mashiach. If a kohen gadol does an avera, if a melech does an avera, it's not burnt outside. He has a special carbon chatas, but it's considered an inside chatas. A kohen gadol and the par helem davar. If the Sanhedrin makes a mistake, and then there was a sar of Avedis Kechavim that was also, I think, burnt outside. If the Sanhedrin makes a mistake and everyone in the community, or majority of the community, violate the law based on the mistake of the Sanhedrin, there was another Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibur. It was also taken out. So by us it says, Or Ubasar Uperish. We're on the bottom line of some of the base, 67. It says the skin, the flesh, and the dung, because we're dealing with an animal here. All of that was taken out. What's the pasuk actually? It says Ayreisam Saram Vespirsham was taken out of the camp and burned. Benemar Lahalon, and it also says regarding the Par Kayanam Mashiach, the Kayan Gadol that does an Aveira, that over there that sacrifice was also taken out of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Harabayas of Yerushalayim was burnt. What does it say there? Baro basar perish, the skin, the flesh, and the dung. Okay, what are we looking for? That the skin is burnt. Where do we see that the skin is burnt? Mala halan al yidei nituach v'lay al yidei hefshet. Just like by the Parkain and Mashiach, it was cut up, but it wasn't skinned. So too here also it was cut up and not skinned. Well, that's a nice answer, but there's an assumption. Assumption is that over there it wasn't skinned. The Gemara says v'hasamin alan. I'm gonna listen to the share coming from Yitzi, from Jimmy. It's coming in. I'm hearing myself talk on the phone. Where do we know from there? Where do we know that it wasn't skin? If you didn't say that, you just said we're just going to do exactly what it says there, but we don't know where it says over there. But we don't know the source for Parkai and Mashiach. So it says the Tanya. It was taught in the Brisa. No, when you came in, I was hearing my voice. And I said, "Oh, you're probably listening to a better share than I'm." The Tanya was taught in a Brisa. We're looking for the source of the Parim Hanisrafim, that they are not skinned. They're just burnt together with the skin. We're taught in a Brisa, V'kirbai u'pershai, quoting a pasuk, v'haitzi. What does the pasuk actually say? It says, Ves arapar, ves kol basar, ves reishai, v'alkra, v'kirbai u'pershai, v'haitzi. And the skin of the bull, and its flesh, and its head, and its legs, and its innards, and its dung, and it's taken out. Malami, this teaches us Shemitzi Shalom, that you take it out whole. It's not really what we said before. We said that you were going to cut it up. But we didn't mention how it was taken out. We only said that before you burn it, you cut it up. So carried out, we said that it was by the Yom Kippur, we said it was carried out, braided, the two animals together. But here, you don't have two animals, it's just one animal. But it's carried out whole. Yachol Yisrafenu Shalom. Maybe you should burn it whole as well, like the Korban Pesach type of burning. Nemakan Reisha Krav and Nemalalan Reisha Krayim. What's it supposed to say? Reisha Krav. It says by the Oila. It says Va'archu es hanesachim, es haroish, ves hapeder, and va'akerev akrayim. It says that it's cut up by the Oila. If it's cut up by the Oila, it's going to be cut up also by the Par Kayin HaMashiach. Okay. So we're learning from the Oila. But when you're learning from the Oila, you're asking for trouble. Because the Oila has different halachas. Imal halana they have shit, afkana they have shit. But the Oila was skin. And here we're saying that it wasn't skin. So Talmud Laimar Kirba Yupirshay. So it says no, innards with the dung. Where it says my Talmud, what do you see from that? What does that teach you? Amarav Papa Kshem Shepirshay Bekirbe Kach Besori Ba'oray. Rav Papa explains, just like the dung is inside the intestines, is inside the innards, it's still there, it's not removed. So too, the flesh is still inside the skin. That's the limit. Okay, so what were we looking for here? We're looking for that it's not cut up, that it is cut up, but it's not skinned. So the cut up we learned from the Oila, and not skinned we learned from the comparison to Pirsha B'kirbe, that the dung is still inside. So too, the flesh is still inside the skin. Okay. Me'emasai, who would do the burning? Was it a Kayan that did the burning? Anyone know? Was it a Kayan that did the burning? I don't know. Yeah, but this isn't on the open. This is outside the base of English. What do you think? Anyone have any idea? Did it need to be a Kayan? I mean, you're taking it from the base of Mikdash. So probably the person that's taking it was a Kayan. But when it got over there, the cutting off and the burning of it, who had to do it? I don't know. It could be it says it clearly in the pasuk. They're taking it outside the three camps. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. There's machlekes which side it was.
Is this part of the avoda?
Well, that's a good point. You're asking if it would be the avoda, then the Kohen Gadol should have to do it because it's the avoda sayim. It's definitely, I mean, these karbanos are part of the Avodah. This is a detail of the Avodah. You know, like the Sarah Mishtaleya, that was done by someone else, even though it wasn't, even though it's part of the Avodah, but it wasn't the Kohen Gadol.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does it say?
Well, the first half says, and if you want to know that, the second half says, Sarah for some companies, but you don't want to.
Right. He's going to become Tameh, but I don't, is it a Kohen?
You
Right.
can either make it stuff,
Right.
maybe it's called, or maybe not, maybe. So definitely answer any question.
Yeah. The easiest place to find an answer to this question would be in the Rambam. Because he would give us the order of the, without too much searching. Okay. From when does the clothing become tameh? We said that the one that burns the par inside, that they become tameh, the clothing becomes tameh. But at what point did the clothing become tameh? We asked this question, it's very important, because let's say he touches something after he started carrying it out, before it's totally burned, are the things that he touched tameh. Right? So Tana Rabbana was taught in a brayso, Yoitzi al michutz hamachane v'sarfu. He takes it out of the camp and he burns it. Lahalan ata noisein lahem shalish machanes. V'kan ata nois lamatana machane achas. We have a bunch of karbanos that are brought outside, like we mentioned. They're brought outside and they're burnt outside the camp. But those karbanos are burnt outside 3 camps. And here it just says, Yoitzi al michutz hamachane, you take it outside the camp. Sounds like 1 camp. No, it's divided, the territory is divided into 3 camps. This is based on the way it was in the desert. We had the Machane Shechina, that was the tabernacle. We had the Machane Levia, that was surrounding the tabernacle, the Levium area. And the Machane Yisrael was the rest of the camp. Corresponding to that in Eretz Yisrael is Zara, is the Machane Shechina. The Harabayas is the Machane Levia. In Yerushalayim is Machane Yisrael. So by the other sacrifices, it says you take them out of 3 camps. That means you have to take them outside of Yerushalayim. And over here, it says you take it out of 1 camp. Sounds like you can burn it on the Harabayas. Is it so? You can burn it on the Harabayas? The Gemara rejects that immediately. We know it's not so. So why does it say just outside the camp? It's coming to tell us, it's coming to tell us when the tumah takes place. That when he leaves the camp, when he leaves the Azara, his clothing becomes tameh. He didn't burn it yet. The one that burns it, his clothing becomes tameh, even before he burns it. What point? When he leaves the Azara. So, how do we know that this is how it is, that he has to take it out? Well, we learn it from the other karbanos that have to be taken out of the 3 camps. The Gemara says, you're making an assumption. Where do you know over there that it's taken out of all 3 camps? In other words, the other karbanos that are burnt outside the temple, not the Yom Kippur ones. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. V'haitzias kol hapar. It says that you take out the whole par. It's talking about the par kain Mashiach. Actually, there's two verses here. It could be the par helam davar or par kain Mashiach, which are compared to one another, as we'll see. You take out the whole par, the whole bull. Chutz l'shalish machanas. It's outside the 3 camps. Atar mechutz l'shalish machanas. Ein el chutz l'machanas. How do you know? Maybe it's only 1 camp. When it says about the par helam davar, el michutz l'machana, it says outside the camp. Shein Talmud Laimar doesn't have to say by the par helam davar when the congregation makes a mistake based on the Sanhedrin's ruling that the sacrifice that they bring over there doesn't have to say it's taken out of the camp. Why? Because Shrei Kvar Nemer b'sarafis akasher sarafis a par harishan. You burn it the same way you burnt the other one, the par kaina Mashiach. That one it says outside the camp. So I know it's already outside the camp. So why do you have to say outside the camp again? That it goes outside 2 camps. It still could be in Yerushalayim. There's one more source. It says that you burn these animals in the same place where you pour the ashes from the Mizbeah. The ashes from the Mizbeah were taken off every morning, but that was just a shovelful. But where do you take the whole pile of ashes? That was taken outside the camp. So I have outside the camp by the ashes. I have outside the camp by the bull that's brought when the community makes a sacrifice. I have outside the camp when the Kohen Gadol makes a mistake, he doesn't have Erev. So I have 3 outside the camp. And each one, it says you do it where you do the other one. So, based on that, it says that you do it where the ashes are put. So this is where it tells me that it's outside the 3 camps. So why does it say by us, by the par and Sarv Yom Kippurim? It says outside the camp. But you have a 4th camp. We say no. We say that it's coming to tell me that he becomes tamei outside the 1st camp. The problem is that that's a machlekes. Rab Shimon, remember in the Mishnah, we asked, when does the person become tamei? We answered when he leaves the walls of the Azara. Okay, he's left the Machane Shechina. The Reb Shimon says when the fire catches on to most of it. So according to the Tanakama, they've already answered why it says Michutz LaMachane, because it's coming to tell me when he becomes Tamei. But according to Reb Shimon, Michutz LaMachane doesn't tell me when he becomes Tamei, because he doesn't become Tamei when he leaves Michutz LaMachane. He becomes Tamei when it's burned. Hi Michutz LaMachane Mayavadle, what does he do with Michutz LaMachane? So he says, Mibai Leila Kedetanya. He uses it for something else. He uses it for what it says in the Brisa. Rabbi Lezer, Aimer, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Nemer kan michutz l'machne, v'nemer la'alon michutz l'machne. It says over here, outside the camp. It says over there, outside the camp. Ma kan chutz l'shalish machnas, ach la'alon michutz l'gimel machnas. By the other sacrifices. It says that it's outside 3 camps. This is also outside. Okay, so what? Malalan b'mizracha shel Yerushalayim, achkan b'mizracha shel Yerushalayim. Aha, it's coming to teach me which side of Yerushalayim. We're making a comparison here to teach me that it's on the east side of Yerushalayim. We learned from the Paraduma. It says, El Noichach Bnei Yoel Mayed. Remember by the Paraduma, he had to sprinkle the blood towards the entranceway of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Heichal. By the walls and the doorways have to be lower on the eastern side so that you should be able to see the door. We had that all worked out. You should be able to see the top of the door because it was what's it called? It was the bottom of the door, I think, because it was elevated, so it would miss the top. Okay. The Rabbanan, they use Michutz LaMachane to tell me when he becomes Tamei. They don't use it as a comparison to the other burnings that tell me which side of the Yerushalayim it's burnt on. So according to the Rabbanan, which side is it burnt on? So it says Kedetani was started in a Brisa. According to the Rabbanan, Heichan Nisrafin, you want to know where these are burnt? Let's find a Shel Yerushalayim to the north of Yerushalayim. And it's outside the 3 camps. That's a Brisa. Why the north? It says, well, it's a Chatas. They're all Chatais. And a Chatas is offered on the north side of the Azara. The Shechita is done on the north. So we'll burn it also on the north. So Rabbi Yossi Aimer, we're continuing the Brisa, Beis Hadeshin Nisrafin. It's burnt on the Beis Hadeshin. What Rabbi Yossi is saying is that you can't just find a place on the north and burn it. It has to be that there were ashes put there before you do the burning. It has to be the Beis Hadeshin. So you would have to go to the Beis Hamikdash, go into the Azara, take ashes off the Mizbeach, put them down over there first, and then you would burn these animals on top of those ashes. Amar Rava. Rava says, Man Tana de Palagaled Rabbi Yossi. Who argues on Rabbi Yossi? Notice the Tanakama didn't get into if there are ashes there or not. Tanakama just said it's on the north. Comes on Rabbi Yossi. It says it's on the ashes. Did anyone argue with him? He's saying another statement that has nothing to do with what anyone said. Who argues with him? So that's Rava's question. And he says, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. It's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov doesn't say a lot of things, but we say Mishnasik Kavanaki. Whatever he says is accepted. Now there happens to be the two Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So Rabbi Aaron Hyman wrote those 3-volume set, told us to know. He says that when the sages tell us Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Mishnasik Kavanaki, it's referring to both of them. Yeah. The Tanya, he argues. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov argues with Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Al Shefach Hadesh and Yisarif. On the place of where the ashes are poured, that's where it's burnt. Shehei. L'shem. Is it l'sham or l'shem? Deshen. L'sham deshen, I think. That there are ashes there. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Aimer Shehem Mekayim Meshupa. That it should be on a slope. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is arguing on this. When it says Al Shefach Hadesh and Yisarif, he says that it doesn't need to be, at least that's the understanding right now, that there are ashes there. It just needs to be where it would slope. Shefach Hadesh, where it would pour down, if it was placed there. Amalei Abaya, Abaya says to Rava, he's also not telling me anything about ashes. He's just telling me the topography that it needs to be on a slant. He's not telling me what has to be there. Maybe Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov also holds that there needs to be ashes there, and the Tanakama says there needs to be ashes but no slope, and he says ashes with a slope. Yeah, we don't have an answer to that. Okay, Taner Rabbanan, start in the Brisa. Bahasayres, the one that burns it, the Brisa is following the opinion of Reb Shimon. It says that the burning of the animal causes the person to become tamei, not just the taking it out of the Azara like the Tanakama said. Actually, the one that burns it. When he burns it, when the fire catches on to the majority of the animal, that's when it becomes tamei. It says Shefach, al Shefach Hadesh. He says he learns that it means Meshupa. It means slow, where it would pour down. Yeah, if you would put something on it, it would pour down. If you put ashes on it, it would roll down, and it's a slope. So he's saying that the place where it's burnt has to be on the slope. Yeah. So this is not on a Mizbeach.
I know, but use mechanical calcium somewhere, some hectares, and everywhere else, it can't be sold. All of a sudden, it's always again, it's sold.
Well, he's quoting the pasuk.
Is there a reason?
I don't know. Yeah, Dr. Stein is asking what's the significance of the slope. All of a sudden you have a slope. Usually you have a mizbeach which is flat. Now, I know there's a ramp, but we're not comparing anything to a ramp. It was just how to get up the mizbeach. The mizbeach was a mizbeach. You see the mizbeach apnimi doesn't have a ramp. I mean, it's only 1 amma or 2 ammas. Is it an amma and a half or 2 ammas still? By an amma. There's no ramp over there. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, so here it says V'aseirif, the one that burns it. Aseirif mitama megadim v'layamatzes asar. It's only the one that burns it, not the one that lights the fire. This reminds me, like in Meron, there's a torch. They sell this close to light the torch, and that torch is going to light the. So who's the one that strikes the match? Does he become tummy? No, it's the one that burns the animal that becomes tummy. It's not the one that arranges the fire either. Everyone likes to arrange the fire first. The kids, they set up the fire. I know how to do this. Who's the one that sets up the fire? Who's the one that burns it? It's the one that stands there while it's burning, adjusting it to make sure that it gets burnt. Yeah. It's the guy with the tongs and the spatula. That's this is not going to be eaten, but he's taking care of it. Maybe even after it turns to ashes, if he's still adjusting it, it would make him tamei. Talmud Leimar Oisam. No, Aseirif Oisam, the one that burns them. It's not them anymore. It's something else. Once it's ashes, it wouldn't make him tamei once it's burnt. Rabbi Lazar Reb Shimon Aimer. Rabbi Lazar, this is the son of Reb Shimon. He says, "Hapar metame nitach, hapar metame nitach habasar eina metame." It has to be the bull that gives off the tumah. But if the flesh is burnt, nitach actually means dissolved. If it's burnt, then it's not metame. Metame begader. My binaya, what's the difference? I mean, that's basically what the Tanakhama said also. Tanakhama said, it just used a different term. It said, once it's ashes, it doesn't make the person tummy. It doesn't make the person tummy. And Rabbi Lazar Ber Shimon says, once it's burnt, it doesn't make the person tummy. The Gemara says, my binaya, what's the difference between those two things? I mean, that's the same thing, burnt and ashes. It says, no, it's not. It could be binaya, there's a difference. The shavya charucha. It could be burnt. Doesn't mean it's ashes. Yeah.
Like well done.
Like toast. You can say, burnt the toast. It doesn't mean it's ashes. So you have a choice if you want to eat it. But it's scorched. It's scorched. So according to Rabbi Lazar, once it's scorched, it's not the par. Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon. It's not the par anymore. It's burnt. According to the Tanakhama, it's not ashes, so it's still going to give off tumah. Only once it's ashes, it doesn't give off tumah. Okay. Yeah. Outside the 3 camps. Yeah. Why did it say 1 camp? That was to tell me when he becomes tummy.
How bad?
Ian's asking a complicated question. He wants to know outside the camp how it's positioned, because there's a slope. There's a slope down towards the Beis Hamikdash slope the other way. And I think he also wants to ask which way the head is facing of the animal as it's burnt. Do you face it that way? There must have been wood. There must have been wood there burning. Yeah. Yeah, Reb Daniel.
When the Kohen Gadol, when the Kohen sprinkles the ashes to make somebody pure again, he becomes impure, right?
That's not so clear.
Okay.
That's not so clear. Rashi doesn't hold that. Rashi says it says Vahamaze doesn't become tummy. Rashi says. What? So why does it say the one that sprinkles becomes tummy? He says no. It's really the one that carries it becomes tummy. Why does it say sprinkles? It says because he has to carry the amount that would be fit for sprinkling. Yeah, someone over there. All the people involved in it become tummy. The one that sprinkles happens not to be, but at least according to the way that opinion is. That's
The
Rashi.
one that carries it, he's just carrying the ashes. So why does he become?
Yeah, the one that carries it becomes tummy. The one that touches it becomes tummy. The one that burns it becomes tummy. The one that mixes it, the one that gathers the ashes becomes. It's like the whole group is all tummy, just for one day.
Mhm.
It's not. It's not like this. It's not like an ever-ending cycle. That now we're going to need to sprinkle ashes on him, and we'll always have people tummy. No, you don't need ashes for those people that just become tummy, right? Yeah, I don't remember, but Rabbi Riskin, um, in one of my encounter videos, he spoke about a yechidus with the Rebbe, and he spoke about the para. The Rebbe told him something about the para duma, that the one that sprinkles doesn't become tummy. I don't even remember. He had a lesson there. I would like to find it. A very interesting talk. So, Amrulai, we have a new Mishnah. They said, Amrulai l'kain gadol. They told the kain gadol, Yisrael midbar. The goat has reached the desert. Which goat? The Sar Mishtaleach, the one that's going to Azazel. Uminayin hayu yoidin. How did they know? They got a text. Uminayin hayu yoidin shigi Yisrael midbar. How did they know that it came? It says, Dirkei sayoisin. They had platforms. Umaynifim besujim, and they would wave. See Reb Naftali. They would wave with a cloth to get this information back. This is similar to like Kiddush HaChedesh, where they would have fires or whatever. They would have a symbol. You see, here it's during the day. At night, they would, if it would be something at night, they would need a fire. But during the day, they would wave a. And it was Yom Kippur. Yeah. Okay. The Yoidin Shigi Yisrael, they know that it reached the desert. It doesn't actually say that they know that it was pushed off the cliff. They know that it reached the desert. They have a better way of knowing. It's only 3 mil. So what would happen is, remember, people would walk to the first sukkah. They would accompany him. That's 1 mil. If it's 1 mil there, then it's 1 mil back. So they would walk to the sukkah, first sukkah. They would walk back, and then they would wait the amount of time that it takes to walk a mil, which I think is 18 minutes. And so then that should be good enough. Halchen mil, chayzin mil, b'shayim, k'dei mil, v'yedin shigi Yisrael midbar. And they would know that it reached the desert, because the desert started only 3 mil away.
Yeah, but that's an assumption.
Right.
A few pictures of only worried whether the animal died
Right.
on the way,
Right.
it fell off, it didn't die on the way down, and all of a sudden now, we're making such it's dead.
Yeah, we're not actually making an assumption that we're making an assumption that it has reached the desert. Once it's reached the desert, then the Kohen Gadol can now go and do his next service.
So
Yeah, but you're right. There is an assumption there, and it's easier to know. Or it's better to know for a fact than to just say, I don't know, maybe he had a flat tire. Okay. Yeah. Tony.
so is it the case that this had to be burned outside, going back to the previous
Right.
Gemara? Had to be done during the day, and it's not like other carbonate that could finish up the burning at night?
Oh,
That was really why I was coming with that question. This is part of the avodah. It seems like it must be, because otherwise, why care about this if not for a timing issue? Because normally, isn't it all right if these amarayim are burned at night? What's left over?
yeah. Yeah. It makes sense what you're saying. Makes sense what you're saying. I don't know about it, but it looks like in the next parak it will be discussed more. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, you have a good point. Okay. What did we have? We had Rabbi Yossi's, no, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda had, this was Rabbi Yehuda that said this. Now, Rabbi Shmuel, is this Rabbi Shmuel? I have an aleph there. Let me take it out. He says, The whole thing is removed from it. What does the box say? Oh, he says this is not part of the Mishnah. Okay. He says this is just the brisa. Rabbi Shmuel Lemer v'leisimin acher hayalem. They had another way of doing this. Lashon shel zahir say kashal pischa shel heichal. There was a red thread that was on the entrance to the heichal. Kishigia sar lemidbar. When the goat reached the desert, hayalashon malbin. The thread would turn white.
That's
only if they were lucky. If your sins are red, it'll become white like snow. Yeah. How do you know that why do you have to ask Rav if the meat is treif? So you give it to the dog. If the dog eats it, and it's treif. There's something like that. Okay. So yeah, Menachem Mendel saying that only if they're lucky it would turn. So it must have been Rabbi Shmuel that's saying this. Must have been at an earlier time that's the way it was accepted. It was assumed that that's what happened. Amar Abaya, Shma min Beis Chiduda b'Midbar Kaima. Abaya says, we see that Beis Chiduda in the Mishnah. We said, how long does it take to get to Beis Chiduda? We said it takes 3 mil. So why is he saying that? It must be that's the desert. But Kamash Malan is coming to tell us that it didn't need to reach the cliff. The mitzvah was enough to reach the desert. That's what we're seeing from Rabbi Yehuda. That's clear. We start the new parak. The Kohen Gadol comes to read. He has to read a section of the Torah. Yeah. It's not his bar mitzvah for sure. How old does a Kohen Gadol have to be? Does it be at least 25, 30? A Levi was 30, right? Before he started. Daniel, when can a Kohen start working?
I think 30.
30 also. So, when he does this reading of the Torah, he could do it in linen, in his linen clothing, which is what he was wearing right now. What was the last thing that he was doing? He took out the innards of the parvasar, and before we were discussing, he did his vida yanasar mishtaleah. Okay. But if he doesn't want, it's the slav mishla. He can wear a white robe also. He doesn't have to wear the linen clothing. He just can't wear the golden clothing, because that would be a problem. What would the problem be? He would have to go to the mikveh, and then to change, when he changes, and then he needs to do an avodah right away, and the kriyas haTorah is not really an avodah. It would complicate things if he would switch to the golden clothing. Chazan HaKnesses, that's the old word for the shamish. Neitel Sefer Torah v'neitel Reish HaKnesses. Chazan HaKnesses gives it to the Reish HaKnesses. The Reish HaKnesses is the Gabbai. Reish HaKnesses neitel Nisgan. And the Gabbai gives out to Elias. He gives it to the Sagan Kohen Gadol. The Sagan neitel Kohen Gadol. And the Sagan, the second, what's it called? Deputy Kohen Gadol gives it to the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, I made a makabel. The Kohen Gadol takes the Sefer Torah of a kairi. I'm assuming he's putting it on a table, but maybe not. Maybe at a small Sefer Torah, he just opened. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It changes hands a lot. What does he say? V'kairei achrei mais. He reads from the portion of achrei mais after the death of the sons of Aaron, which is the section that has the laws of Yom Kippur. V'ach ba'asa. he also reads after that in Parshas Emor. It also talks about Yom Kippur. The Goyal Sefer Torah, he rolls it up and minicha b'cheka, and he holds it by his chest. And he says, he says, more than what I have read to you is written here. People shouldn't think that that's everything that's in the Torah. So, yeah, Label Wolf, you're familiar with Label Wolf? He writes books on Kabbalah. He says that the Rebbe told him when he speaks that he should always say there's more, there's a lot more about this. Sometimes people say he overdoes it, but he says, oh, this is a whole other topic. They shouldn't think like when you go to a lecture, you got to walk out a Kabbalist. Seminar. Okay, there's the parsha of Musaf, which is in Chumash HaPikudim. Chumash HaPikudim is the book of numbers, counting. Why? Because Bamidbar starts off with counting. To count the Jewish people. Count them twice in Chumash HaPikudim. But we're not talking about Bamidbar, we're talking about Pinchas, which is in that sefer. That he does by heart. He says 8 blessings over this. Now, when we read this, there's a problem, because we're going to have probably 10, I think. And it has to do with different gear size. I don't know the way to resolve it, but we're going to list 10. One of them shouldn't be there, and one of them is combined with another one. So, what does he say? He says, Ala Torah. He says, Asher Nasan Lano Teres Emes, right? That's because he just read from the Torah. He says an after bracha on the Torah. Allah Avaida, that's Ritzei, right? But I won't say but that's except our Avaida. Valaida, which is Maidim. Val Mechila Sa'avain. That we say Melech Michael Veseleach La'avain Iseino La'avain Isam Beis Yisrael. We say that the blessing, concluding blessing on Shemon Esrei and Yom Kippur. Ala Mikdash. This is an interesting blessing. We say Baruch Ata Hashem Shebachar B'Mikdash, probably, or Baruch Shebachar B'Mikdash. That's gonna. They chose them based on Mikdash. Val Mikdash B'Fnei Atzmai, Val Yisrael B'Fnei Atzmai, Val Yerushalayim B'Fnei Atzmai. One of those has to go. It's not supposed to say B'Fnei Atzmai on one of them. And on Yerushalayim, Val Kayanim B'Fnei Atzmai, and for the Kayanim he says a blessing. Baruch Shebachar B'Zari Shel Aaron, and also Val Shara Tefillah. That the Gemara is going to need to explain what's going on. Okay. Haraya Kayin Gadol Kshukayrei, the one that sees the Kayin Gadol reading from the Torah, Ein Haraya Parvasar Nesrafim, is not able to watch the goats being burnt. They're burnt outside 3 camps. So I don't know how anyone could watch it anyway. We'll have to see. Unless maybe what it means being burnt. They're done at the same time. That's the problem. If you want to watch that, then you can't watch this. It's not because he's not allowed. It was far away. And they were both done at the same time. So you weren't able to be in at both parties. Right? Okay, let's leave it here. There actually was a shul next to it, yeah. Because we said Chazan HaKnesset. It was a shul next to the Beis HaMikdash.
Okay, good Yom Tov, Shabbos, Shabbos, Mitzvot, Torah Tovot.
Yeah.